Good morning, all. Earlier we have started seeing JavaScript. So we have seen how variables are designed, how conditions loop, how you can write functions, and what are the different things that you can actually do with JavaScript. So today we will continue looking into further about JavaScript. So if you take any programming language in general, it is not that we only work with small numbers like addition operations where it consists of just two numbers, addition, subtraction, or not just small things. But in general, we will also consider large amounts of data, like collection of data. If you say, for example, if you take your class strength, you may be 20, 30, 40 number of students. So you have that much amount of data. And we can do some things with that data, like we can calculate your age, we can calculate how much course grade that you got, what is the average of your class, average grade of your class, and all these things. If you wanted to do, we should be able to store that much amount of data at some place. So whenever we wanted to store a large amount of data, we normally store them in some things called as data structures. So this data structures enables us to store large amounts of data. So one of the common example that we find in all the programming languages is arrays. So arrays will help us to store large amounts of data in it or a collection of data in it. So generally arrays are homogeneous. That means you can only store similar data types. For example, if you are storing integers, then you have to keep storing 1, 2, 3 numbers only. You cannot add a word, strings, or anything like that. If your array is of words, then it should be again strings only. You cannot add something in between like numbers, floating numbers, and all. So even in JavaScript, you have this arrays which help you in storing a large amount of data. So here create an array of objects having movie details. An object should include movie name, string, language, rating, and render the details of the movie on the page using array. So as discussed earlier, arrays are the data structures that will help you in storing a large amount of data. So basically they are of similar type. They can store anything like numbers, strings, objects, functions, and all. So if we look at the example, as you know already HTML tags, and here movie is an object. So in movie object we have properties like name, starring, language, rating. So for every key in the movie, we are trying to write the same thing. So give me 1 minute. So that is about arrays. Actually, the lab code did not have array related thing, but generally arrays are a collection of objects. So next experiment that you have is simulate a periodic stock price change and display it on the console. So create a method which returns a random number and use random functions and all. So here your task is actually to repeatedly call a function for certain period of time and check. So how this is possible is in JavaScript, we have some inbuilt functions that are already existing. So one of the inbuilt function that is already existing is set interval. So when you use this function in JavaScript, here you will mention which function you should call and at what time period you should call. Like after every 1 minute you keep calling this function, or after every 30 seconds you keep calling one, after every hour you keep calling. Depending on that, you should be able to use this function. This function is exclusively used when you have something like animation. So this animation should keep changing the color, or this particular text should keep getting displayed, or the polling data should be displayed after every 1 hour. So when you have something like this as a requirement, you will be using this function. So if you look at here, you have defined two variables, maximum as minus 1000 and minimum as 1000. So you have a function called as stock, and here inside the stock, you are actually performing some mathematical operations. So math.floor, so based on that stock rate, if the stock rate is below 60,000, you are performing some operations. If it is above 60,000, you are again performing some calculations. So now, if you look at line number 23, so you are using this inbuilt function set interval. You are passing the function that you have created stock, and for every 3,000 milliseconds of time, you wanted this stock function to be invoked. So if you look at here, this 9,000, after every 3,000 milliseconds, you are able to see that stock function is getting executed, and those calculations are happening, and you are able to see the live data. So in real times also, whenever you wanted to update something based on some period of time, you can use this set interval function. So you have another experiment. Validate the user by creating a login module. So this login module is common for every website or every application that is there on the web, because you have to authenticate the users. You generally don't allow everybody to use your apps. You wanted their details and know that person and validate them, and then only you will be entering. So how do you validate them is generally by asking them their username and password. So this validation cannot be done with HTML or CSS. It can be done through JavaScript only, mostly. So so how do you do is, in general, you will create a file called as login.js with a user class, and you will create a methods to validate the username and password that is entered by the user. And if the username and password are equal, I mean if the password matches with the registered password, then you will say the login is successful. So the header part is already common. So from here your login form is getting started. So div ID log form. So you have is given some class name, then class name again, and input fields are given here. So the first input label is username, and in the placeholder you are displaying the username, and the maximum length is 30. And again you have another input field here, that is password, and the password placeholder, and the maximum length is 16. Here you are not having labels, but earlier we have seen labels which is nothing but the text that is going to be displayed there. So instead of that, you are having placeholders where the input box itself has the what has to be entered, those details. And you are giving forgot password link in case if you forget your password, what you should be doing. So here you are for the button, you are giving using the on click function, and you are saying on clicking this particular button, go to Valley function. So this function is something that we are going to look in JavaScript. So once the user enters the username and password, you will click on this login thing, and then hello. So if you come
Madam,
to
please carry on, madam. Sorry.
okay, sure. Okay. So once you click on this valid function, once you click on this login button in JavaScript, this particular function gets invoked. So once this function gets invoked, what it tries to do is document dot get element by I. So here I means the username. So we have given this username and ID of I. So document dot get element by ID. So whosoever ID is I, whatever details are there in that particular ID I, get me those details. So here you will be getting the username, whatever username the user has entered. And then again you have another variable path. So here also you are trying to do the same thing, document dot get element dot id value. So whosoever id is 2, so password's id is 2, and whatever password we enter, whatever text we enter, that will be coming here and stored in pass. So here we are creating a new user, see username and password. So whenever we are logging, we are giving some instructions like the username should not be less than 6, and the password should not be less than 8 length. So if you try to log in with username of length less than 6 and length less than password of length less than 8, you will actually get this error message. Please verify the password and username. In case if the username is whatever is given here, if this is successful, if the username you have entered is Chakri and the password is 12345678, then the login attempt will be successful. So if we run this on the browser, so if I give something less than 3 and less than 8 here, and if I try to click on login, so it is not of size 8 and 6, so you are getting an error. So if I give the valid thing, so now when I give a valid user details, whatever I was checking randomly, then you can see my login was successful. If I type something like this, so because there is no user with this name and password, and you are not actually checking for other username and password, you are not getting any error message. So in real time, this happens with a lot of data. So whatever you are doing here is not is constant, it is fixed. But in real time, you will actually fetch the data from the database. Once you enter the username and password, from the database you will get the actual details of that user, and then you will start checking whatever is given by the user matches with the whatever was actually stored in the database. So if both of them matches, then only you will make the login attempt successful. So coming to the next lab that we are looking into something called as Node.js. So Node.js, as discussed earlier, JavaScript has been serving for a long period of time, and it has been developed a lot. And one of the way it has been enhanced is this Node.js platform. So what is Node.js is earlier days when JavaScript was not developed that much, if we wanted to validate anything, we have to actually go to the backend, that is server, and then we have to validate, and then we have to come to the front end and display those details. So this was a time taking thing. So later on, with the help of Node.js, what happens is whatever you wanted to validate at the back end, it can be done in a limited amount, in a quick time, even with the front end. So Node.js is a powerful platform for executing JavaScript code outside the web browser. So it allows you to build server-side applications, command line tools, and even desktop applications. So now JavaScript is everywhere. That means it is there both on the client side as well as the server side, which helps in building the applications easily. So asynchronous programming. So it helps in managing the input and output transmissions from client to server in an efficient way. And vibrant ecosystems, because it has been evolved over a period of time. You have many inbuilt functionalities, frameworks that actually help you in building applications faster without you writing the code from scratch or developing other frameworks. So here we are right in the first lab that you have. Write a program to show the workflow of JavaScript code executable by creating a web server. Generally, we have client and server. Client is nothing but we who use the application, and server is nothing but where the actual data is getting processed, like whatever you are requesting, it has to come from some place, right? Those things are called as servers. Servers are also computers, but they are at a remote place and they serve you whenever you request something. So with the JavaScript, especially to Node.js, they can actually help you in working as a server. So here we are actually importing the module called as HTTP. HTTP stands for Hypertext Markup Language, which is responsible for communicating over the internet. So so then you are creating a port number. So port numbers are generally the ports that are there on your computer where they actually listen to the data that is coming inside. So here you are saying listen at the port 3000. So here how do you create a simple server is by using this uh, inbuilt function create server and request and result. So result.write. So these are HTML, HTTP formats of how you should be writing the data. So 200 means the response header. 200 means it is okay, the server is working. And what type of content you are sending over the internet is text type, and it is of HTML type. And what exactly you are sending is hello from Node.js and result.end. So, so this is the server that you are creating. So whenever somebody requests you something, you will be sending this result. And uh, you are starting the server by using server.listen. And here is the port number that you are already mentioned in 3000, and your port is actually started running. So once you run this file, so the server is running and it is running at this particular link. So this is, so you are getting the data that that the server is sending. So here you have created a server and you are accessing that server with the link that was being created by you. The link that was being created by you. Once the server got connected, create server, and you are sending all these things as the response. So whatever you are sending is only this part. The HTML part that you are sending will only be visible to you because that is what we are actually sending. All the other details are actually hidden because they are a part of server creation process. And the next experiment that we will be looking into is write a Node.js application module to show the workflow of modularization of a Node application. So here we will try to build calculator app. So generally Node.js also looks similar to JavaScript, but the way you use it is actually making the difference. Like performing the operations and all will actually be looking something like they are happening in the server side. So to create a module for in Node.js, you will if your modules are nothing but functions which will do the specific tasks that are designed for which they are designed for. So you will to create functions in Node.js similar to in JavaScript, you will use the keyword function followed by the function name and whatever parameters that you wanted to give it to the function, you will be enclosing them in the parentheses and you will perform that operation and return the result. So you have a calculator app, you have another function, subtraction, a minus b, you are performing multiply, division. And uh, sometimes we wanted in one file, we only want whatever is related to that file to be written in it. And we wanted those things to be available for the other files also. So how you make it available is by using this exports keyword. So here in module.exports, you are mentioning add, subtract, multiply, divide, which are the functions that we have already defined in this file. So once you mention them as exports here, that means that these functions can be used by other files, whichever files actually need. So if we move on main.js, so we are actually importing request dot calculator JS file, and because we have written here export, we are able to access these functions in another file also. So console.log is where your output gets displayed. So calculator.add, multiply, and divide, and the console.log. Here you are using try catch because in division we may get errors like divided by 0 and all. So those error prone things should actually be handled in try catch block so that you will know what type of error you are getting and you will try to rectify it and display it as output. So if we run, so that is how you will actually write modules or modularized code in Node applications. And then you have another lab where on the page display the price of the mobile based in three different colors. Instead of using number in our code, represent them by using strings. So if you look at the code that is given to us, so similarly HTML tags, HTML head, title, meta character, and here you are using some links here. These are called as external links that help you in designing your website efficiently. So here you are using Bootstrap. Bootstrap is one of the frameworks which will help you in making your text visible clearly on different screen sizes. So making the text clearly visible on screen sizes is also called as responsiveness. So we have in nowadays we have different gadgets. We have mobile phone, we have laptops, we have smart TVs and all. So the same application you are opening on different things and you are getting the text adjusted to the screen size and coming. So that is actually possible. That adjustment of text, images and all on different screens is called as responsiveness. If we do not use any framework, what happens is in the code, we should only be writing if the screen size is this much, then adjust the text size to this much. If the screen is a smart TV, adjust the things on that screen this much. So actually, we have to be writing the code which happened in the long back period. But with the help of the frameworks that are available now, you as a developer need not worry about this responsiveness. Only the framework will take care about adding the things. And we have seen HTML, we have seen JavaScript. Another most important language that we have in the front end technologies is CSS, cascading style sheets. So what does this cascading style sheets does is it gives the color, different font size, the background, and whatever things that you wanted, like whatever you wanted to make to your website colorful and all, that is possible with the help of this uh, CSS. So how do you use CSS is you will be enclosing them in the style tags. And if it also has many attributes, and based on the requirement, you will be using those attributes. And if you see here, we are using nav bar, and for nav bar you are trying to keep the color, you are trying to set the color as this, and a background image you are saying none. So background repeat, no repeat, and you are mentioning the color of the whole nav bar again as FFF. So these are the color codes. And you have another ID nav bar, active uh, active ID and a tag. Then for that particular nav bar, you are giving the color, background color, you are mentioning it as transparent. So for your HTML files, if you wanted to decorate it and make it colorful, make it some precise sizes and all, then for those tags in HTML, you will use those tags only in the CSS, and you will be enclosing whatever properties you wanted to change in cascading style sheet CSS, and those changes will be reflected. So the style tag is closed here. That means these are the things that you are going to do for your HTML file. And from here, body, you are actually getting your body tag. So here we have a nav bar, and we are saying the class like this. We have given the class name like this, and again another class name, and we are giving a button to it. And on the nav bar, you have given some other classes. So div style margin top 7%. So how much gap there should be there from one margin to another margin? That is how you are mentioning here. So here you are actually trying to display an image. The image name is this, and then you are trying to display the details of that image. So how are you getting the details of that image is from the product list.js file. So in that file, you are actually mentioning the product name, price, and all. So now you are setting document.get element product name as p.inner HTML of mobile name. So when you load this page, wherever the p name tag is there, so price, so p name ID here this particular mobile name will be displayed. Then you have price, p price ID. So from the JavaScript, you are able to set the free price ID as this 2100. And again, P available, wherever the available ID is there you are setting the HTML as P available. So when you actually run this code and load, this is how you will be getting the output. So another lab that you have is asking you to use arrow functions to display the product. So what is an arrow function is, generally we will write functions, but sometimes we will be having some small functions which can actually be written in a single line. That actually enhances the readability, and the number of lines in that code and will be reduced, and it will be simple and concise to understand. So if there are possibilities of those functions, then you will write it in a single line. Those are called as arrow functions. So traditionally, if you look here, you have to define a variable, you have to use the keyword function, and then you have to pass the parameters and return the result. If you use the arrow function, you need not use the keyword to define it like function here. You can directly write the function name, the attributes, and what it has to return. So here you can see the number of lines are reduced, and the way it is written is little bit concise. So these are called as arrow functions, which are available in JavaScript. So if you look at the lab, so in JavaScript file, in HTML file, we are only defining the IDs, at what IDs we have to place the values that are there in the array. So, but here if you look, we have an product list of any, and here we are defining an array, and we started storing the elements of the product. So the product ID, the product name, the product price, product availability status, the image URL, and product description. So like that, we have 1, 2, 3, 4 5 products, and we are actually now using a for loop on this list, and we are displaying all the products that we have on the website by using a for loop. So if user clicks on get mobile data, so whenever user clicks that, we are sending the product, and we are displaying the product details clearly. So what happens is, by using this for loop, we are actually displaying this element. Okay. Once the elements are displayed, if we wanted to get further details, we are clicking on that, and then we are getting this alert message because of this function get mobile details, where we are displaying the clear details of each clear details of the display of the clicked mobile. Which accepts so consider that developer needs to get mobile by vendor, which accepts string as the input parameter and reads the list of mobile. So if you write this code in JavaScript, you are trying to get define a function. So how do you define a function in JavaScript is without using arrow functions, is by using the keyword function, and here you are defining the function name, and it is taking the parameter as input. So then you are creating a variable of type mobile list of type string array. If the manufacturer is Samsung, then you are creating a list of mobile that Samsung is manufacturing, and you will return that list. So return mobile list. If the manufacturer is Apple, then you are creating a list of Apple products, and then by using the keyword return and this list, you are returning the Apple products, or else Nokia. So once you run the file, you will be able to see, you will be able to use this function and display the details. So in console.log, the available mobile list, if we are calling this function with Samsung. So get mobile by manufacturer, this function gets invoked, and you are passing Samsung as parameter. This is the string that is going to be stored in manufacturer, and it goes through this if else conditions, and wherever the condition satisfied, that result will be returned. So here it is again another example of arrays, using arrays. So here you are having a constant manufacturer array. So in this manufacturer array, we are trying to store objects. So an object which is having ID and price. So ID and price, this is one object, and the second object and third object. So function, my function test manufacturers dot filter dot manufacturer, where the price is greater than 200. So you are iterating through this array of objects, and you are trying to get in test, you are trying to store the details of those objects whose price is greater than 200. So in the result, you will be getting something like Apple, only. So my function console dot manufacturer details context item of test. So constant item of test. So you are trying to call this test function, and because it is an arrow function where it is trying to filter uh, from this objects whatever values, wherever the values are greater than 200. So here you will be getting a list of objects. So you are iterating the list of objects and displaying. So if you run that file, you will be getting Microsoft and Apple, because only those two things are having price greater than or equal to 200. So again, define a function get mobile by manufacturer. Now it is taking two parameters. One is manufacturer name and their ID, and where manufacturer value should pass as Samsung and ID parameter would be optional. While invoking the function, if ID is passed as 101, the function should return the details item. So here again you are defining a function get mobile by manufacturer, and you are sending the manufacturer details and the ID, the name of the mobile that you want. So here you are having the list, defined a variable of mobile list of string type. If the ID is there, if the ID is not empty, it is there. And if the ID is 101, then you are sending whatever mobile is come under the category of ID 101, and you are setting that list. If manufacturer is given, for that manufacturer, whatever mobiles are possible, you are returning the mobile number. So the main responsibility of this function is you are passing two parameters Samsung, or you are passing two parameters manufacturer or ID. ID is optional, but manufacturer is mandatory. So if you have sent ID, then only this particular function gets executed. If you did not send ID, by default, that means you have sent the manufacturer, and based on the manufacturer that you have sent, any of these conditions will be invoked, and those wherever it is true, that details will be returned. If we come to the next lab, implement the business logic for adding multiple product values into a cart variable, which is of type array string. So if you take any website like Amazon or any other shopping website, there is a common functionality that you see is adding items to the cart. So for that, how the things will be looking is, so generally to store multiple items, you should be choosing an appropriate data structure. So an appropriate data structure in the sense that should be able to hold multiple values. And here, for that purpose, we are creating a constant variable called cart, and which is of type array, and which is of data type string. So we are calling a function called push to cart constant item, which is of type string, and cart dot push item. And we are defining a function add to cart that, so add to cart function is mostly responsible for adding the elements to this variable cart. So here, whenever we are calling add to cart function, we are sending the product name, and for product name, that can be a single product or multiple products. So for each product that is there in the array, we are iterating and we are calling this push to cart function, and we are adding here the item to the cart. So if you see cart dot items, whenever if you wanted to execute the function, we are calling add to cart. Here we are sending a list of items. So here the list of items will be there, and we are calling, we are iterating each item. We are pushing it to the cart, pushing cart function. So this is a arrow function because it is there on the single line without using the keyword function, and it is able to do the operation directly. So the next experiment that you have is declare an interface named product with two properties like a product ID, product name with a number, and a string data type, and need to implement the logic to populate the product details. So generally in object-oriented programming, you might have come across interface. Interface is nothing but you will define the details of what you want, define the details of anything that you want, and that, so instead of using it again, instead, so you will only define the details, but you will not provide the implementation details. So here you are creating an interface. Its name is product. You are just mentioning it should contain a number and a string. Number and a string. So what numbers it should be there? What are the string details it is there? You are not mentioning. So it should have product ID and product name. So if you wanted to create an object by using this interface, you will use the key, you will create an object by like this in the enclosed brackets. You are giving a product name and product product ID and product name, and constructing the details. So get product details of the product object. So this function we have defined it here. Get product details. So when you when you call this function with the product object that we have created in this line, we have created the object here. So this function gets invoked, and here we are trying to display the product ID and product name details. And then we are using console.log to display the details. So this experiment is also the same. Again, you are creating an interface with the details that a product should have product ID and name and the same function. Declare a product list interface which extends properties from two other declared interfaces like category, product. Okay. So you are here, you are declaring multiple interfaces. So interface category name string, interface product, and in the product you are defining the product related things. And now you are using one of the property of object oriented principle, and you are trying to use whatever existing interfaces are there in the product list interface. So it is using category and product, and it has again its own attribute arrays. So now if you wanted to create an object for product list interface, so in the product list interface, you are creating an object like this: category name, product ID, which you are actually using from the other two interfaces, and you are creating a list of objects. So if you wanted to iterate this product list, you are actually using product name dot. So here for p name, if you wanted p name, that product name, you are using the product details object dot the product dot the attribute name. So in p name, you will be getting the product name as mobile, and list product is also an variable. in which you are trying to collect the product details list. So for the product details list has this details. So you are trying to store the details here. So here in this experiment, consider the mobile cart application. Create objects of them in the product list array. So first you are supposed to create a class called as product class, and for that product class you have to create objects in the sense multiple objects, and place them in the product list array. So for the product class you are creating the product interface, and it has product name details and product details. So then you have a class called as gadget that implements the product, and get product details. You are returning Samsung, LG, Motorola. These are the product details that will be stored here. Display product name. So this is a function that is available in this gadget class, and if you call this function for whatever product ID you are sending, it will check that product ID and it will display the name. And get gadget is also another function that is there in this class method, which is taking the string and that is going to return this list. So create instance of class of interface type. So for every product gadget or variable, you are creating new gadget, and then so this is the gadget object. How you are creating is of type new of gadget, and in this gadget you are trying to call the function gadget dot display product name. So display product name function will be invoked here, and if you wanted to see the details, you are again using console.log and printing the product name. So this is another example for using classes in JavaScript. So class is the keyword to define the classes, and here you are having the class name followed by the attributes that it has. So a class product is having product price and product ID, and constructor is what initializes the class. So here, whenever you are initializing the class, you are sending the product ID, and that product ID is being assigned to this attribute product ID. And it has a method called as get product ID, which is returning a string. So product ID is, and this dot product ID is written. So how do you create an object for this class? Is by using the keyword new followed by the constructor that followed by the class name. So when you use this keyword new followed by the class name, the constructor gets invoked. So you are passing 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4 will be initialized. So now this product you are trying to print product dot get product ID. So you are calling this function here to get product ID. So it will display whatever ID that you have passed here, 1, 2, 3, 4. So you are further enhancing the same class by adding some more attributes like product name, product category, and even in the constructor, you are trying to initialize the product ID, product name, product category, and the same method that you have here. And here you are using the class gadget that is already existing, that is extending the existing class product with some other properties that you want that product. So here constant g, you are creating a variable of type gadget, and you are passing the values 1, 2, 3, 4, and you are passing these values. So when you pass these values, this particular constructor gets invoked and all the values will be set and a g object. So g dot get product means this function will be invoked And this dot product category, whatever you have sent, mobile will be displayed. G dot product ID, then you are trying to display those details. So create a product class with 4 properties, namely product ID and methods to set product ID and get product ID. So generally we use setters and getters to set the value and get the values in a class. So normally they start with the keywords of set and get to be more clear on what those functions will be doing. So in object-oriented programming, these are called as access specifiers or accessing the element. We normally use getters and setters, accessors and modifiers. So here we have the class, and inside this class we are using the method get product, which will actually give the details of the product. In gadget we are extending the product, and again we are using again get product method, which will provide us further details. So new gadget of, so you are creating tablet 1 2 3 4. So if you do g dot get product, the product ID is and the product name details you will be getting. Create a namespace called product utility and place the product class definition in it. Import the product class inside the product file list and use it. So here namespace is a keyword and utility is the name of that namespace. Export namespace payment is another method. So we are using the keyword export that indicates that these functions can actually be used in another files or like in another places wherever we want. So export will actually give the they will actually give the access that it can be used by other files or other applications. So here you are giving a namespace and payment. You are trying to give the export a function also calculate amount. So this function can be used by other things, calculate amount function, and it performs this particular operation. So you are again giving another function, maximum discount allowed. This function is also defined here with an export keyword, which means it is accessible to other things. So in the another file, you are actually trying to use import utility.payment, this particular module, utility and payment, and you are easily accessing util.calculate amount. This function you are able to use, and you are passing these parameters, and the returned answer will be stored in this variable, and you are printing that variable here. And you have let discount, and again in the utility class we have already defined this maximum discount allowed function. This function will be called and this operations will be performed and the result will be given here again. So if you run this file, you will be getting the details. The output will be executed like this. So consider a mobile cart application which is designed as a part of functions in module to calculate the total price of the product using the quantity and prices and assign it to a variable, total price variable. So if you have an application that is having a list of products, to calculate the values of those products in the cart, you are trying to define a separate file where calculations will be happening. So here you are defining a function max discount allowed in module demo.ps file. So here you are performing operations, and calculate class utility you are defining, and again here also you are defining the function, and again another category interface. So now in a separate file, you are actually writing all the functionalities that are required in a separate file, and now you are trying to use those functionalities in another file. So you have defined them and you are using them in a separate file here. So constant util variable, new main utility. So you are defining an object for this class, and util dot calculate amount, you are calling this function, whatever is there in the utility class. So like this, you are able to write things in separate files and call from one file to another file, which is called as modularity, where you have certain blocks written separately. This modularity will actually enhance the readability and identifying the errors. So in this experiment, you are focusing on creating a generic array. So what is mean by an array is to store a collection of elements. So whenever we create an array, we create it of a fixed data type, like that array can be string, that array can be integer. So whenever we create, we declare it will be integer array, string array, like that. But what do you mean by generic array means? You will you will define the array, but at runtime, that array can be string, that array can be integer, that can be anything. So those type of at runtime initialization things are called as generic arrays. So you just declare them as generic, which means they can be of any data type. So how do you define is by mentioning them as by using this open and closing bracket with T. So whenever you declare it like this, that means that is of generic type. So they can be strings or anything. So here you are creating a function sorted array, which is going to take an input array which is generic, so which you don't know as of now. Then you are applying the sort function here. So here you are declaring the generic arrays. Here you are declaring the general array, where this array is of type int number, and this is, so num is a variable which is of type array, and this is the values that you are storing, and you are defining another array string which is taking these values. Now you are sending sorted array function. You are trying to call this function. So because you are using generic, you are able to pass an array of integers, and you are displaying the sorted output here. Again, to the same array function, you are able to pass the strings also. So that is also possible because of the generic arrays problem. So for the same function, you are able to pass different data types. And if you do console dot, you will be displaying the output. So these are the labs that are existing for you. In case if you have any doubts in the concepts that are there so far, let me know. Let me know if you have any questions on any of the things that were there. Okay then. Thank you all. Have a nice day.